The first time I touched a human, it wasn't at all what I expected. I'm Zelda, senior xenobiologist aboard the Galactic Union research vessel Boundless Curiosity. We've studied 17 sentient species across our journey, but humans are different. I still remember standing in that sterile meeting chamber, my appendages trembling slightly as the human ambassador extended his hand toward me. Such a simple gesture, one they call a handshake, yet I hesitated. That question has haunted me for cycles. Is something wrong? The ambassador asked, his expression shifting in that remarkable way human faces can. I later learned this particular arrangement indicated concern. Their faces tell stories even when they're silent, another fascinating aspect of their species. Forgive me, I said, extending my upper limbs slowly. On my world, physical contact is uncommon outside family units. The truth was more complicated. The Galactic Union had spent decades observing humans from afar before making contact. We watched their broadcasts, studied their conflicts, witnessed their capacity for both tremendous violence and breathtaking compassion. And something about them frightened us deeply. HFY research team was given clear instructions: minimal physical contact, controlled environments, extensive protective measures. The Union Council feared human unpredictability. They're emotional creatures, my superior had warned. Dangerously so. But standing there, face to face with Ambassador Chen, those warnings seemed absurd. His smile was warm, his demeanor open. When our hands finally met, there was no electric shock, no mysterious transfer of human volatility. Just the strange sensation of their warm, five-fingered hand clasping mine. That was 3 Earth months ago. Now I find myself sitting across from a different human in a much less formal setting. Dr. Lily Rodriguez, cultural anthropologist, has been assigned as my liaison. We're in what humans call a cafe, a gathering place with stimulant beverages and sweet confections. A curious cultural institution, but effective for conversation. You're staring again, Zell, Dr. Rodriguez says with that facial movement humans call a smirk. I've learned it typically indicates amusement, sometimes with mild challenge. Apologies, I respond, my secondary eyes blinking in embarrassment. Your species fascinates me. The feeling's mutual, she replies, lifting her cup of coffee to her lips. But I'm curious, there's something I've noticed about all of you from the Union. You maintain distance. Even you, despite being our most enthusiastic visitor. I consider deflection but decide on honesty. We've been instructed to maintain certain protocols. Because you're afraid of us, she states simply. Not a question. The directness startles me. Humans often speak this way, cutting through layers of diplomatic language with unexpected precision. Not afraid, I correct, though it's partially untrue. Cautious. Your history contains significant conflict. Dr. Rodriguez leans forward slightly. So does every sentient species, I imagine. Unless the Union has somehow evolved beyond violence. I lower all 4 eyes briefly, an admission. No. But humans are. I search for the appropriate word. Unpredictable, she offers. Intense, I decide. You feel everything so deeply. Joy, sorrow, anger, love. Your emotions drive your actions in ways we find difficult to quantify. And that scares you. It concerns the Union Council, I clarify. Dr. Rodriguez is silent for 7.2 seconds. I've learned this typically indicates thoughtful consideration. You know, Zell, there's an irony here. Throughout our history, humans have often feared contact with different cultures. We worried about disease, cultural contamination, violence. And now we're the ones being treated with the same caution. She extends her hand across the table, not for a formal handshake, but palm up. An invitation. What are you doing? I ask, my voice modulator pitching higher with surprise. Testing a theory, she says. I think your Union's fear isn't really about our unpredictability. I think you're afraid of connection. Real connection requires vulnerability, and vulnerability is scary across the universe. I stare at her outstretched hand. Something inside me, something not recorded in any of our scientific protocols, wants to reach back. What happens if I touch you? I ask quietly. Her eyes, those remarkably expressive human eyes, hold mine steadily. I don't know exactly. That's the beautiful thing about contact, Zell. It changes both parties in ways we can't predict. I pause, my appendage hovering uncertainly above her hand. Everything in my training warns against this uncontrolled interaction. But something more powerful draws me forward. My appendage hovered just centimeters from Dr. Rodriguez's outstretched palm. The cafe around us buzzed with afternoon activity, other humans conversing, laughing, tapping on their primitive data devices. None of them noticed our silent moment of tension, this small rebellion against Galactic Union protocol. I lowered my limb onto hers. The sensation was ordinary. Slightly textured. No different than our formal handshake weeks ago. But the context transformed it into something profound. This wasn't diplomacy, it was curiosity meeting curiosity. Connection for its own sake. See, Dr. Rodriguez said softly. The universe didn't implode. A sound escaped me, the clicking vibration my species produces when amused. The Union Council would disagree. They've documented 17 instances of diplomatic contact gone catastrophically wrong. Tell me about one, she challenged, withdrawing her hand to lift her coffee cup. I found myself strangely disappointed at the broken contact. The Lorien incident, I said, remembering my training. A minor cultural misunderstanding led to a planetary civil war. Involving humans? No, I admitted. The Loriens. A methane-breathing species from the Cygnus arm. Dr. Rodriguez leaned back slightly. So not humans at all. What about the other 16 catastrophes? I shifted uncomfortably. 2 involved humans. Minor incidents, centuries ago, before your species achieved unified governance. Before we grew up, you mean, she said, those expressive eyes narrowing slightly. Zell, every species has growing pains. You're judging us by our past, not our present. She was right, of course. I'd reviewed the data extensively. Human conflict had decreased dramatically over their last century. Their global cooperation index had improved by 78.3% since their early space exploration era. Yet the Union's caution remained steadfast. There's something you're not telling me, Dr. Rodriguez said, interrupting my thoughts. Her perception was uncomfortably accurate. Another trait that made humans unsettling to many Union species, they noticed things, patterns, emotional states, even when we tried to conceal them. It's classified, I replied automatically. Her expression shifted to what I recognized as disappointment. I thought we were building trust here. The weight of that statement tread heavily upon my thoracic cavity. Trust. Such a simple concept, yet infinitely complex in practice. My research team had studied human trust dynamics extensively, but experiencing it firsthand was different. There was an incident, I began carefully, 57 Earth years ago. Before official contact. A Union observation vessel crashed in a remote region of what you call Nevada. The crew survived, but they were discovered. Dr. Rodriguez's posture straightened. First contact happened decades before the official announcement? I blinked all 4 eyes in confirmation. 3 Union observers were held by your military for 8 months. They were treated, not cruelly, but as subjects of intense study. Tissue samples were taken. Tests conducted. Questions asked endlessly. That's not in any of our historical records, she said. Your governments are quite effective at concealing information when motivated, I noted. The observers were eventually rescued during a covert operation, but their experience shaped Union policy toward humans significantly. She was quiet for 13 seconds, an unusually long pause even for her thoughtful nature. So we're being kept at arm's length because we did exactly what you're doing now, studying another species. The difference is consent, Dr. Rodriguez. Your government didn't ask permission. Call me Lily, she said absently, processing this revelation. So the Union is afraid we'll, what? Dissect you all for science if given the chance? Not precisely. The Union fears your curiosity, Her laughter caught me off guard. That's the most ridiculous thing I've heard. You fear our curiosity? It's not ridiculous at all, I said, my secondary vocal chamber activating to add harmonic emphasis, something I did when feeling defensive. Human curiosity is relentless, uncompromising. Your species has destroyed ecosystems, split atoms, and revolutionized your planet countless times in pursuit of knowledge. The rate at which you advance technologically outpaces safety protocols. You ask, can we long before, should we? Lily's expression sobered. Fair point. The Union moves methodically. We study for centuries before implementing change. Humans want everything now. You push boundaries without fully understanding consequences. She leaned forward again, eyes intensely focused. And yet here you are, breaking protocol to have coffee with me. Sharing classified information. Touching my hand. Seems like curiosity isn't exclusively human. That stopped me. She was right. My behavior was increasingly human. The realization sent a nervous ripple through my cellular structure. What happens if the Union discovers your unauthorized interactions? She asked. Recall. Possibly permanent reassignment. Then why risk it? The question hung between us. Why indeed? I had a promising career, centuries of potential research ahead. Why jeopardize everything for these unauthorized interactions? Because, I began slowly, understanding forming as I spoke, Union protocols cannot account for everything. Your species is complex. Contradictory. Dangerous, yes, but also remarkable. I cannot fully understand humans from behind barriers of protocol. Lily smiled, that fascinating movement of facial muscles that somehow conveyed more meaning than our most complex mathematical formulas. There's another reason, she said with quiet certainty. What reason? Her eyes held mine with uncomfortable intensity. You're lonely, Zell. I think a lot of your species are. All that careful observation, all that knowledge, but so little genuine connection. The accusation struck a sensitive neural cluster. Was she right? Was loneliness driving my protocol violations? Before I could formulate a response, my communication implant pulsed, the distinctive pattern of an urgent recall signal. What's wrong? Lily asked, noticing my sudden stillness. I'm being summoned back to the ship. Immediately. The journey back to the Union vessel was conducted in silence. My escort, 2 security officers from my ship, maintained rigid postures that conveyed their discomfort with the assignment. They hadn't spoken a word beyond the initial, "You must return immediately," but their body language told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't routine as our transport pod ascended through Earth's atmosphere. I watched the planet's surface recede, blue oceans, green-brown continents, white swirls of cloud cover. Such a visually chaotic world compared to my homeworld's orderly purple plains. Perhaps that was another reason humans unsettled us. Even their planet refused categorization. Has the Council been informed of my activities? I finally asked. The taller security officer's outer membrane rippled, a sign of discomfort. The commander will brief you. When we docked with the Boundless Curiosity, I was escorted not to my laboratory or even to the commander's chamber, but to the ship's secure communications hub, a space typically reserved for the most sensitive transmissions with the Union Council. Commander Vexlor stood waiting, all 6 of her eyes focused on the main display. She didn't turn when I entered. Senior Xenobiologist Zelda, she acknowledged, her tone formal. Your unauthorized interactions with the human have compromised our mission parameters. I felt a coldness spread through my cellular structure. Commander, I can explain. There is no need, she interrupted, finally turning. We have monitored all communications. Your perception has become contaminated, precisely as the Council feared might happen with prolonged human exposure. The accusation stung. With respect, Commander, my scientific objectivity remains intact. I've simply discovered that certain Union protocols may be unnecessarily restrictive regarding human interaction. A ripple of disapproval passed through her outer membrane. The protocols exist for a reason, Zelda. And today, that reason has been validated. She gestured toward the main display. This transmission arrived 17 minutes ago. The screen activated, revealing an official communication from Earth's unified government. My translator implant processed the message automatically to the delegation of the Galactic Union ***. We regretfully inform you that classified information regarding a historical incident in Nevada has been compromised. Our intelligence agencies have confirmed this breach. Under Article 7 of our diplomatic agreement, we formally request an immediate consultation regarding this security violation. Furthermore, we must insist that all research activities involving human biological or psychological assessment be suspended pending review. The message continued, but my attention was pulled away by the commander's voice. You shared classified information about the Nevada incident with a human, she stated. Not a question. Information that was restricted by both our government and theirs. My inner chambers constricted with dread. Commander, Dr. Rodriguez and I were discussing the foundations of human-union relations. The context was important for building mutual understanding. Your assignment was not to build mutual understanding, the commander replied sharply. It was to study human behavior within strictly defined parameters. Parameters that make true understanding impossible, I countered, surprising myself with my boldness. The commander's posture stiffened. The Council has ordered your immediate recall. You will return to Central Union Space for full debriefing and potential memory modification. Memory modification. The word sent a shock through my system. The most severe punishment for a researcher, the removal of contaminated experiences and the knowledge gained from them. Commander, please, I said, my voice modulator struggling to maintain stability. The humans aren't what we've been led to believe. Yes, they're emotional and unpredictable, but those traits drive innovation and adaptation. Their capacity for connection is precisely what makes them dangerous, the commander finished. Your behavior proves it. 3 months of contact, and you've already violated core protocols. Shared classified information. Formed emotional attachments. This is exactly the pattern the Council predicted. The accusation silenced me momentarily. Had I formed an emotional attachment to Lily? The possibility had never consciously occurred to me, but now that it was voiced aloud, I couldn't dismiss it. You have 6 hours to prepare for departure, the commander continued. Your research will be transferred to secondary xenobiologist MEV Trin. Trin has no experience with humans, I protested. Which means no contamination of perspective, the commander replied coldly. That I was escorted to my quarters, where I found my research terminals already locked. Years of work, observations, analyses, all inaccessible. The walls of my chamber, usually displaying views of my homeworld's twin moons, were blank gray. Another punishment, subtle but meant to reinforce my isolation. That I sank onto my resting platform, all 4 limbs trembling slightly. 6 hours until departure. 6 hours until I left Earth, never to return. 6 hours until I would lose not just my research, but potentially the memories themselves. My communication implant buzzed, an incoming transmission on a private channel. Surprising, given my current status. I accepted cautiously. Zell? Lily's voice filled my auditory chamber. Are you all right? You disappeared from the cafe without explanation. I hesitated. Further communication would only compound my violations. But something inside me rebelled against the silence. I've been recalled, I said quietly. Permanently. The Union knows about our conversations. About what I shared with you. There was a long pause. I don't understand. I didn't report anything. Your government did, I explained. They've been monitoring our interactions. That's impossible, she said, her voice hardening. Our meetings weren't official. We met in public places, away from monitoring equipment. A cold realization washed over me. Lily, did you ever undergo security clearance procedures before being assigned as my liaison? Of course. Standard protocol for anyone working with extraterrestrial delegations. Were there medical examinations? Vaccinations, perhaps? Yes, several, she confirmed. Why does that matter? I closed all four eyes briefly. Because the Union isn't the only government that employs biological tracking technology. Her sharp intake of breath was audible even through the transmission. You're saying I was tagged? That they've been listening through me somehow? It appears both our governments have trust issues, I said, attempting human-style irony. The silence stretched between us, heavy with implications. Finally, Lily spoke again, her voice lower, more determined. This isn't right, Zo. Neither for you nor for humanity's relationship with the Union. We need to fix this before you leave. There's nothing to be done, I replied. My departure is scheduled in 6 hours. After debriefing, I'll likely undergo memory modification. Memory? They're going to erase your memories. Her voice rose with what I recognized as human outrage. No, absolutely not. I'm coming up there. That's impossible, I said. Humans aren't permitted aboard Union vessels without extensive preparation and authorization. Then we'll meet somewhere else, she insisted. Somewhere they won't expect. The old observatory on Mount Wilson. It's remote enough to avoid immediate detection. Lily, this is irrational, I protested, even as part of me thrilled at the rebellion. Further contact will only worsen my situation. Your situation is already worst case, she countered. What more can they do? Besides, I have information you need to hear. Something important about human-Union relations that might change everything. My inner chambers quickened their rhythm. What information? Not over communications, she said firmly. Mount Wilson. 2 hours. I'll be at the main telescope building. The transmission ended abruptly. I sat motionless, processing the implications. Meeting her would be a direct violation of my confinement orders. Yet her mention of important information triggered both my scientific curiosity and a deeper, more troubling emotion I couldn't name. The ship's systems would track any official departure. But there were other ways off a Union vessel for those who knew the maintenance protocols well enough. As senior researcher, I had access to the specimen collection pods, small craft designed to gather atmospheric or biological samples. They weren't designed for passenger transport, but they could sustain my biological needs for a short journey. My inner chambers pulsed with what humans would call fear as I made my decision. Whatever Lily needed to tell me, whatever consequences awaited, I needed to hear it. Not just for my research, not just for science, but for something else, something the Union had never prepared me to understand. The specimen collection pod was not designed for stealth. As I disengaged from the boundless Curiosity's undercarriage, the ship's systems would register the departure, though with luck, they would initially assume it was an automated collection sequence. I had perhaps 30 minutes before they realized the truth. Earth's gravity pulled at the small craft as I descended through the upper atmosphere, the pod's exterior heating rapidly. My four-fingered appendages worked the simplistic controls with precision born from desperation. I had never piloted a vessel into planetary atmosphere before. My research had always been conducted from the safety of our ship or in controlled diplomatic environments. The pod shuddered violently as it cut through cloud cover. Below, the sprawling metropolis of Los Angeles spread out like a luminous circuit board against the darkness. Beyond the city lights, I could make out the silhouette of mountains against the night sky. Mount Wilson, where Lily waited with information that might change everything, or might be a trap engineered by human authorities. Trust. Such a fragile concept, yet I was staking everything on it. The pod's navigation system was rudimentary, designed only for basic atmospheric sampling missions. I guided it manually toward the coordinates I'd memorized, the small craft protesting with each adjustment. As I approached the mountain observatory, I scanned for a suitable landing zone away from potential witnesses. A small clearing near the secondary observatory buildings offered the best option. I brought the pod down with more force than intended, the impact sending me tumbling against the restraint systems. For a moment, I lay still, assessing for damage to my biological systems. Finding none, I disengaged the pod's hatch and emerged into the cool mountain air of Earth. The night was clear, stars visible in a way rarely seen from the light-polluted cities. I oriented myself toward the main telescope building, where Lily had promised to meet me. My species' vision was designed for the dim purple light of our homeworld, giving me superior night vision on Earth, an evolutionary advantage in this situation that I moved cautiously through the trees, my exoskeleton adjusting to the lower temperature. The main observatory dome loomed ahead, its white surface ghostly in the moonlight. As I approached, I detected no signs of human presence, no vehicle lights, no movement, no sound beyond the natural ambience of Earth's nighttime ecosystem. Had I misunderstood? Or worse, had Lily been prevented from coming? Zell. The voice came from my left, soft but clear. I turned to see Lily emerging from the shadow of a maintenance building. She was dressed differently, dark clothing, practical footwear, a small pack slung over her shoulder. Her usual laboratory-appropriate attire replaced by what I recognized as hiking gear. "You came," she said, relief evident in her voice. "I wasn't sure you could get away." "My departure will have been detected by now," I replied. "We don't have much time." She nodded briskly. "Then we should move quickly. But first," she reached into her pack and removed a small device, activating it with a press of her thumb. A soft blue light pulsed once. "Signal jammer. Should disrupt any bio-trackers within 20 meters. Temporary solution, but better than nothing." This level of preparation surprised me. "You came equipped for covert operations. This suggests you anticipated conflict with your authorities." Lily's expression tightened. "Let's just say I've had my suspicions for a while. Follow me." She led me not toward the main observatory building as expected, but to a smaller structure partially concealed by trees. A maintenance shed, according to the faded sign. She produced a key, an archaic metal one, not the digital systems humans typically used, and unlocked the door. Inside was not the tool storage I expected, but a small room dominated by computer equipment. Screens displayed data feeds I couldn't immediately interpret. A portable power generator hummed quietly in one corner. "What is this place?" I asked, all four eyes blinking in confusion. "My unofficial research station," Lily answered, securing the door behind us. "Been setting it up for months. Off the grid, off the record." She moved to the main console and began typing rapidly. "Zell, what I'm about to show you isn't just classified, it's buried. Erased from official records." The main screen flickered, then displayed what appeared to be archival footage. The timestamp indicated a date 57 Earth years ago, matching precisely with the Nevada incident I had mentioned to her. "Is this the original recordings of your people's crash landing?" she confirmed, eyes fixed on the screen. "But keep watching." The grainy black and white footage showed 3 Union observers, clearly injured, being escorted from the wreckage by human military personnel. Standard procedure, matching the official records? But then the footage continued where the official record ended. The observers were placed not in isolation chambers as reported, but in what appeared to be comfortable living quarters. Medical treatment was administered, but I saw no evidence of the invasive examinations reported in Union records. Instead, I witnessed something entirely unexpected. Human doctors and scientists engaged in what appeared to be collaborative communication attempts. Respectful, cautious interaction. "This contradicts everything in our records," I said, secondary vocal chamber activating with confusion. "Our observers reported being treated as specimens, subjected to painful examinations, held against their will." Lily nodded grimly. "Keep watching." The footage advanced several weeks. The observers appeared to be in good health, engaged in what seemed to be voluntary communication sessions with humans. Then something changed. Another group of uniformed humans entered the facility. Different insignia, different demeanor. The screen split to show concurrent footage of the 3 observers being moved to a different facility, one that matched the descriptions in the Union records. Sterile, clinical, intimidating. "I don't understand," I said. "There was a change in oversight," Lily explained. "The original recovery operation was headed by a multinational scientific coalition. But 26 days after the crash, a separate military division took control, one with different priorities." She pulled up additional documents on a secondary screen, official orders, signatures, verification codes. The original team's approach was exactly what you'd hope for in First Contact. Cautious but compassionate, focused on communication and mutual understanding. The second team. Her voice hardened. They wanted tactical advantages. Technology. Biological information they could use. This suggests our observers gave accurate reports of their experience, I noted, but incomplete ones. Exactly, Lily said. But here's where it gets complicated. She pulled up another file, this one bearing the seal of the Galactic Union. This is from your archives, not ours. Took some doing to get it. I leaned closer, translating the familiar script. These are orders? To the recovery team sent to extract our observers. Specific orders, Lily emphasized. Read the highlighted section. My inner chambers constricted as I absorbed the words. The extraction team had been explicitly instructed to ensure the observers reported only their experience with the second facility, the harsh one. Any positive interactions with the first human team were to be omitted from all official records. The Union deliberately suppressed information about human compassion, I whispered, the implications cascading through my consciousness. But why? Lily's expression was grim. The same reason governments throughout history have maintained power, by controlling the narrative of us versus them. Your Union needed humans to be perceived as dangerous to justify their cautious approach. Just as your military needed our technology and suppressed the scientific coalition's more diplomatic approach, I added, understanding dawning. Both sides manipulated the truth. A sudden noise outside interrupted us, the unmistakable sound of an aircraft approaching. Lily rushed to a small window, peering out cautiously. Military helicopter, she reported, her voice tight. Not standard patrol patterns. I moved to join her. Through the trees, I could make out the dark shape against the night sky, searchlights beginning to sweep the observatory grounds. Your government, I suggested. She shook her head. Unlikely. I covered my tracks too well. Realization struck me. The Union found my pod. As if confirming my words, my communication implant activated, bypassing my blocks. Commander Vexlor's voice filled my auditory chamber. Senior xenobiologist Zelda, you have violated multiple protocols and endangered Union human relations. Return to your pod immediately. This facility will be neutralized in accordance with Security Directive 7. My blood ran cold. Lily, we need to leave now. They're planning to destroy this facility, likely with us in it. Her eyes widened. What? Why would they? Because you have evidence that contradicts the official narrative, I said urgently, gathering the data drives from her console. Evidence that proves both our governments have been lying since First Contact. The helicopter's searchlight swept over the small building, illuminating the interior briefly through the windows. Lily moved with surprising efficiency, disconnecting drives and shoving them into her pack. There's a maintenance tunnel, she said, moving toward a floor hatch I hadn't noticed. Leads down the mountain to an emergency access road. My car is there. And then what? I asked, following her toward the hatch. Where could we possibly go that either government wouldn't find us? Lily paused, hand on the hatch, and met my gaze with unexpected intensity. There's a third option, Zell. A group that's been monitoring both our governments for decades. People who believe the truth about First Contact should be known. Humans who would help a Union fugitive. I asked skeptically. And Union members who would help humans, she replied. Your people aren't as united as you've been led to believe. Just like ours. The implications were staggering. Dissidents within the Union itself, working with human counterparts. Everything I thought I knew about our carefully ordered society threatened to unravel. The building trembled as something impacted nearby, a warning shot or the beginning of the neutralization the commander had mentioned. Decision time, Zell, Lily said, pulling open the hatch to reveal a dark passage below. Stay with what you're told to believe, or find out what's really happening between our species. Behind us, the door to the shed burst open. Silhouetted in the doorway stood two Union security officers, their uniform exoskeletons unmistakable even in the dim light. Between them stood a human in military attire, the insignia matching those I'd seen in the footage of the second facility that had taken over the Nevada incident. Dr. Rodriguez. Xenobiologist Zelther, the human officer said calmly. You're both in possession of classified materials that compromise galactic security. Please step away from the hatch. Lily's hand found mine in the darkness, warm fingers wrapping around my cooler appendage. The sensation sent a jolt through my neural pathways, the simple touch carrying more meaning than any diplomatic protocol could capture. Zell, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Do you trust me? Time seemed to slow as I looked into Lily's eyes, then at the authorities blocking our escape, then back to her waiting hand. In that moment, I understood something fundamental about humans that no amount of observation could have taught me. Their capacity for hope in desperate situations wasn't just emotional irrationality, it was evolutionary brilliance. Yes, I said, grasping her hand firmly. I trust you. What happened next occurred with such speed that my 4 eyes struggled to process it. Lily threw something toward the officers, a small canister that erupted in blinding light and thick smoke. Taking advantage of their momentary disorientation, she pulled me down through the hatch, slamming it shut above us. We descended into darkness, the tunnel barely illuminated by emergency lighting strips along the floor. Behind us, muffled shouts and the sound of the hatch being forced open pushed us forward with renewed urgency. They'll be right behind us, I said, my voice modulator struggling to maintain calm frequencies. Lily nodded, leading us through the narrow passageway at remarkable speed. The tunnel branches ahead. We'll use that to our advantage. She wasn't exaggerating. Within minutes, we reached a junction where the maintenance tunnel split into 3 separate paths. Without hesitation, Lily reached into her pack and removed 2 small devices, activating them and tossing one down each of the tunnels we weren't taking. Motion emitters, she explained at my questioning look. Basic technology, but effective. Should buy us some time. We continued down the center passage, the incline growing steeper as we descended the mountain. The sounds of pursuit faded temporarily, suggesting her deception had worked. Still, we maintained our pace. You seem well prepared for someone who claimed to be a cultural anthropologist, I noted between careful steps that a small smile crossed her face. I am an anthropologist. Just not exclusively for Earth cultures. She glanced back at me. The group I mentioned, we call ourselves the Convergence. Humans and non-humans who believe isolation between species serves only those in power. How long has this group existed? I asked, struggling to comprehend the implications. Since the Nevada incident, she replied. The original scientific team that made peaceful contact with your people, they never gave up on the idea of genuine connection. When they were shut out by the military, they went underground. The tunnel eventually opened into a larger chamber, clearly an old utility room of some kind. Lily moved directly to what appeared to be a solid wall, pressing her hand against a specific section. To my surprise, a portion of the wall receded, revealing another passage. This wasn't on any blueprint I studied, I said, amazed. That's the point, she replied. The Convergence has been modifying infrastructure for decades, creating safe paths between worlds. We followed this new tunnel for several minutes before emerging into a natural cave system. The air was cooler here, damper. In the distance, I could hear water flowing. We're beneath the mountain now, Lily explained, almost to the rendezvous point. Rendezvous? You contacted your group already? She tapped her wrist device. The moment I activated the signal jammer back at the shed. Standard protocol when a meeting is compromised. I was about to ask more when the cave suddenly filled with light. For a moment, I feared we'd been discovered, but the illumination came from strips of bioluminescent material along the walls, activated by our presence. The sight was beautiful, reminiscent of ceremonies on my homeworld. The passage widened, opening into a vast underground chamber. And there, waiting for us, stood the most unexpected gathering I could have imagined. 3 humans dressed similarly to Lily, but more striking was the presence of 2 Union members, not just any members, but species I recognized immediately. One was Voxanar, a communications specialist from the Boundless Curiosity who I'd worked with occasionally. The other was a high-ranking Science Council member whose image I'd seen in Union broadcasts, Trelka, rumored to have disappeared during a research expedition 5 Earth years ago. Voxanar stepped forward, inner membranes fluttering with what I recognized as nervous energy. Senior xenobiologist Zeldar, your research has been most illuminating. You've been monitoring my work? I asked, surprised. With great interest, Trelka confirmed, joining us. Your observations about human connection patterns matched our own research. When you began forming a genuine bond with Dr. Rodriguez, it confirmed our theories. What theories? I asked, my scientific curiosity overriding even my current predicament. Lily answered before the others could. That the fear between our species is manufactured. That there's something about direct human contact that allows other species to see through the narratives our governments construct. Trelka nodded. The Union Council has long known that extended, unmonitored contact with humans leads to what they call perspective contamination. What they don't reveal is the nature of that contamination. Empathy, one of the other humans said simply. Genuine understanding. Which is precisely what power structures fear most, Lily added. That a distant rumbling interrupted our conversation, the unmistakable sound of pursuit catching up to us. They've found the hidden passage, Voxanar said, checking a monitoring device. We have approximately 7 minutes before they reach this chamber. Trelka turned to me, all 6 eyes focused with intensity. Zo, we brought you here for more than your safety. We need your help. Your position in the Xenobiology department gives you access to the Union's most closely guarded secret, the empathic protocol. The term struck me like a physical blow. The empathic protocol was classified at the highest level. I'd only heard it mentioned once, in a secured briefing about human research limitations. How do you know about that? I asked. Because I helped design it, Trelka replied grimly. Before I understood its true purpose. Which is? I pressed. To prevent this, she said, gesturing between Lily and me. The protocol isn't just a research guideline. It's a neurological blocker integrated into all Union observers. It specifically dampens the areas of our consciousness that would normally respond to human emotional signatures. The implications were staggering. You're saying the Union deliberately neuralters its researchers to prevent emotional connection with humans? Not just humans, Voxanar added. But humans trigger the effect most strongly. Something about your species breaks through the protocol with extended contact. Lily stepped closer to me. That's why touching is so restricted. Physical contact accelerates the breakdown of the protocol's effectiveness. A memory surfaced, the first time I'd touched Lily's hand in the cafe. The strange sensation I'd experienced wasn't just the novelty of human contact, it was the protocol's barriers beginning to fail. We need to disable the protocol across all Union research vessels, Trelka continued urgently. The neurological codes are stored in the main xenobiology database, which you can access. You want me to sabotage Union systems? I asked, secondary vocal chamber humming with distress. We want you to free your colleagues from neurological manipulation, Lily countered. Let them make their own choices about how to interact with us. The rumbling grew louder. Our time was running out. Even if I agreed, I said, how would I get back aboard the Boundless Curiosity? I'm a fugitive now. Trelka exchanged glances with the others. We have a plan, but it's extremely risky. It requires you to surrender. Surrender? I echoed in disbelief. Temporarily, Voxanar clarified. When they take you back to the ship for memory modification, there's a brief period during the preparation phase when you'll have access to the main laboratory systems. During which you can upload this, Lily said, producing a small data crystal from her pack. It contains a program that will neutralize the protocol across all connected Union vessels. The weight of the decision pressed down on me. If I refused, I'd need to flee with the convergence, abandoning my research, my position, my entire life within the Union. If I agreed, I risked everything on a desperate plan that might fail, and if it did, I'd lose not just my position but my very memories of these revelations. The chamber shook as an explosion echoed through the tunnels. They were getting closer. "We need to move now, whatever your decision," one of the human convergence members urged. I looked at each face in turn, the humans and union members working together despite everything their governments had done to keep them apart. Then I looked at Lily, whose eyes held no pressure, only patient understanding. That I end that moment, I made my choice. "I'll do it," I said. "But not by surrendering." Confusion crossed their faces as I stepped toward the tunnel entrance, where our pursuers would soon emerge. "The Union won't risk harming me," I explained. "My research is too valuable and the diplomatic incident would be too costly. That gives me leverage." "What are you suggesting?" Trelka asked. "A third option," I replied. "Not surrender, not escape, but confrontation. With truth." I activated my communication implant, broadcasting on the emergency frequency that I knew Commander Vexlor would be monitoring personally. "Commander," I said clearly, "I know you can hear me. I'm prepared to return voluntarily to the ship, but only under specific conditions. I wish to present my findings directly to the Science Council, including everything I've learned about the Nevada incident and the empathic protocol." There was a long silence before her voice replied, audible to all in the chamber through my externalized communication field. "The empathic protocol is classified beyond your clearance, xenobiologist Zeldar. Mentioning it is a serious violation." "One of many I've committed today," I countered. "But unlike my other actions, this one cannot be hidden by memory modification. I've already transmitted encrypted data packages to multiple secure locations. Any attempt to alter my memory will trigger their automatic release to every Union world and human government." It was a bluff, but one I delivered with perfect confidence. Behind me, I sensed the Convergence members exchanging glances, adjusting to my unexpected strategy. "You're threatening the stability of Union-human relations," the commander replied, her voice colder than I'd ever heard it. "No," I said firmly. "I'm offering to save them. The current approach is unsustainable. The empathic protocol is already failing. More researchers will experience what I have, the realization that our fear of humans is manufactured." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the tunnel. "I have a research vessel." Standing by, I continued. "With your permission, I will return to the ship and prepare a full presentation for the Science Council, including a new proposed framework for human interaction. One based on truth rather than manipulation." The footsteps stopped. The silence stretched painfully. Finally, the commander spoke. "The council will never agree to this." "They will when they see the evidence," I replied. "And when they understand the alternative, exposure of decades of neurological manipulation of Union citizens." Another long pause. "Very well," she finally said. "You may return and prepare your presentation. But Dr. Rodriguez and the others must remain in custody until the council renders its decision." I turned to Lily, who shook her head firmly. "Unacceptable," I relayed to the commander. "Dr. Rodriguez accompanies me as a human scientific representative. The others are free to go, that's non-negotiable." To my surprise, Lily stepped forward. "I'll go with you," she said quietly. "The others need to protect the network." Trelka moved to object, but Lily silenced her with a look. "This is what the Convergence has worked toward for decades. A chance to address the council directly. We can't waste it." The commander's voice returned. "We are approaching your location. You and Dr. Rodriguez will be escorted to the ship. The others have 5 minutes to vacate." As the transmission ended, Voxanar approached me. "This is not what we planned, but perhaps it's better. Confrontation rather than sabotage. Truth rather than more secrets," I agreed. The Convergence members quickly gathered their essential equipment. Trelka pressed the data crystal into my hand. "Take this anyway. If negotiation fails, we may still need the technical solution." As they prepared to leave through another hidden passage, Lily stood beside me, facing the tunnel where Union security and human military would soon appear. "Are you certain about this?" I asked her. "The risk is considerable." She smiled, that fascinating human expression that conveyed so much without words. Isn't that what you've been studying? Human risk assessment? How we balance potential gain against potential loss. And what is your assessment of our current situation? I asked. She reached out, her fingers intertwining with my appendage in that strange, wonderful way that had started everything. That some connections are worth the risk. The security team emerged from the tunnel, weapons ready but not raised. Behind them came Commander Vexlor herself, all 6 eyes narrowed as she surveyed the scene. The human military officer from the shed stood at her side, an uncomfortable alliance. Senior xenobiologist Zelda, the commander acknowledged formally. Dr. Rodriguez. I straightened to my full height, Lily's hand still firmly in mine. Commander, I replied, we're ready to change history. As we were escorted from the cave, leaving the Convergence to continue their work from the shadows, I felt something I never expected, hope. Not the cautious optimism of a scientist seeing promising preliminary data, but the profound hope humans seem to carry with them like a biological trait. The journey back to the boundless curiosity was conducted in tense silence. In the shuttle, Lily leaned close to me, whispering so softly that even Union hearing enhancements would struggle to detect it. Whatever happens next, she said, you've already accomplished something remarkable. What's that? I asked just as quietly. Her eyes met mine, filled with that intensity I'd come to admire. You asked why we fear touching humans. But look at your hand now. I glanced down at our still intertwined digits. Somewhere along the way, the touch had become natural. Comfortable. The fear had dissolved so gradually I hadn't even noticed its departure as the shuttle docked with the research vessel. Commander Vexlor approached us. The Council has convened an emergency session. You'll present your findings in 1 hour. Thank you, Commander, I replied. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. I hope you understand what you're doing, Zelda. There are reasons for the protocols. Reasons beyond what you've discovered. Something in her tone gave me pause. What do you mean? She glanced at Lily, then back to me. All 6 of her eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep discomfort in our species. The empathic protocol wasn't created just to prevent emotional attachment, she said quietly. It was created because direct contact with humans changes us. Permanently. And not everyone believes those changes are for the better. Before I could question her further, she moved away, leaving me with a new sense of unease. Lily squeezed my hand. What did she say? I started to respond when suddenly a strange sensation washed over me. A tingling that began where our hands joined and rapidly spread throughout my neural network. At first, I thought it might be anxiety about the upcoming presentation, but this was different. Physical. Unmistakable. Around us, the ship's lights flickered briefly. Zell? Lily's voice sounded concerned. Are you all right? I tried to respond, but found my vocal chambers temporarily unresponsive. In that moment of neural disruption, something extraordinary happened. For just a few seconds, I perceived not just with my own senses, but with awareness beyond them. I felt the presence of every crew member aboard the ship, sensed the subtle electromagnetic fields generated by the vessel's systems, and most astonishingly, I felt Lily's consciousness, not as a theoretical construct but as a tangible presence connected to mine. The moment passed as quickly as it had come, leaving me gasping as my systems returned to normal. What just happened? Lily asked, her eyes wide with concern. Before I could answer, Commander Vexlor was suddenly beside us again, her exoskeleton rigid with alarm. Around us, other crew members had stopped in their tracks, many exhibiting signs of disorientation. It's happening, the commander said, her voice barely audible. The real reason for the protocol. The thing the Council fears most of all. What is it? I demanded. She looked directly at our joined hands, then up at me with all 6 eyes focused in perfect alignment. The awakening, she whispered. The true reason we fear touching humans. It's not that they change us, it's that they complete us. And completed beings cannot be controlled. Throughout the ship, I could hear exclamations of confusion and wonder as other crew members experienced what I had. Something fundamental was changing, not just in me, but in every Union member aboard. something triggered by my connection to Lily, spreading like a cascade effect through our neural network. The empathic protocol hadn't just been blocking emotional connection, it had been suppressing something far more significant. Something that direct human contact somehow activated within our species. As realization dawned, I turned to Lily, seeing her now with new clarity. I understand now, I said softly, why the Union fears touching humans. Her eyes questioned me silently. Because when we touch, I explained, my voice filled with wonder, we remember who we truly are. In the days that followed, the boundless curiosity became something entirely new, not just a research vessel, but the epicenter of a transformation that would eventually reshape relations between our species and humanity forever. The emergency council session never happened, at least, not in the way we'd anticipated. Instead, as the awakening spread throughout the ship, traditional command structures dissolved. Not into chaos as the council had always feared, but into something more organic. Collaborative. We found ourselves operating with a synchronicity that transcended our previous hierarchies. Commander Vexlor surprised me most of all. Once the initial shock passed, she revealed that she'd suspected the truth for years, having experienced momentary glimpses of awakening during her own early contact with humans. She'd buried those experiences, recommitting to Union protocols out of fear, but never completely forgetting. The Council doesn't fear humans, she explained as we gathered in what had once been the command center but now served as a communal meeting space. They fear what happens to us when we truly connect with them. We become something they can't predict or control. But what exactly is happening to us? Asked MEV Trin, who had been slated to replace me but now worked alongside me as an equal. I feel different, more complete. Lily, who had been granted unrestricted access throughout the ship, offered the insight that only an outside perspective could provide. From what I've observed, it's as if humans act as a catalyst for abilities your species already possesses but has suppressed, either evolutionarily or artificially. The data supported her theory. As we studied ourselves with the same scientific rigor we'd once applied to humans, we discovered that direct human contact triggered neural pathways that had long been dormant in our species. The empathic protocol hadn't created these blockages, it had merely reinforced natural evolutionary barriers that had developed as our species became more technological and less connected to our original, more intuitive nature. We evolved away from these abilities as we advanced technologically, I explained to the crew. The protocol simply institutionalized our own natural tendency toward isolation and control. The abilities themselves varied among individuals. Some experienced enhanced perception, others discovered telepathic connections with fellow crew members, and nearly all reported a profound sense of connectedness that transcended ordinary experience. Most significantly, we all felt a dissolving of the fear that had defined our approach to humans and other species. Within 2 weeks, other Union vessels responded to our transmissions. Some reacted with alarm, threatening quarantine procedures. Others, particularly those with extensive human contact, reported similar awakenings spreading among their crews. The Union Council, facing an unprecedented situation, found their authority eroding as more ships and stations experienced the change. Then came the day Lily and I had worked toward, the first official joint meeting between awakened Union members and the Convergence. Trelka and the others emerged from hiding, bringing with them decades of research on the phenomenon. We've observed this in multiple species, Trelka explained, displaying data I'd never seen before. Human contact consistently triggers latent abilities in other intelligent life forms. Something about their neurological structure serves as a key that unlocks what is already present but dormant. A gift we never knew we were giving, Lily added thoughtfully. Which explains why the Union and other galactic governments have maintained such strict protocols about human interaction. I said, the final pieces falling into place. Power structures across the galaxy recognized the threat, not of human violence or unpredictability, but of what happens when their citizens experience true connection. The implications extended far beyond politics. As awakened Union members connected more deeply with humans, both species began changing in subtle ways. Humans exposed to awakened Union members showed increased empathic abilities themselves, suggesting the catalyst effect worked in both directions, though differently. Lily and I documented everything, creating what would eventually become known as the Connection Archives, the foundation for a new approach to interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. 3 months after our confrontation on Mount Wilson, I stood with Lily on the observation deck of the Boundless Curiosity, watching Earth rotate slowly beneath us. We'd been granted special diplomatic status, neither fully aligned with the old Union structure nor completely independent, allowing us to continue our work during this transitional period. Do you regret it? Lily asked, her hand comfortably entwined with my appendage in what had become our natural state. Leaving behind the certainty of your old life? I considered the question carefully. I miss the simplicity sometimes. Knowing exactly what was expected, following clear protocols. But no, I don't regret discovering the truth. Even though it's complicated everything. Perhaps that's what real connection requires, I replied. The willingness to embrace complication. To move beyond fear into uncertainty. She smiled, that expression I'd studied so clinically once but now understood from within. Very human of you. Very universal, I think, I corrected gently. We're discovering that the capacity for deep connection exists throughout sentient life. Humans just happen to be particularly gifted at triggering it in others. Beyond the observation window, a shuttle departed the ship, the first of many carrying awakened Union scientists to Earth for extended cultural exchange. No isolation chambers, no restrictive protocols, no fear-based limitations. Just open exploration between species finally meeting as equals. It won't be easy, Lily noted, watching the shuttle descend. There will be resistance on both sides. Those who prefer the old barriers. Of course, I agreed. Fear is a powerful force throughout the galaxy. But so is curiosity. And hope. As I spoke those words, so human in their optimism, I realized how much I had changed. Not just neurologically but philosophically. I had begun this journey afraid of human unpredictability, of the intense emotions that drove their species. Now I understood that what I'd feared wasn't their nature, but how it reflected what was buried within my own. So, Lily said, squeezing my hand, what's next for the galaxy's leading expert on human-union relations? I turned from the window to face her fully. I think it's time to move beyond studying each other and start building something together. Something like what? I don't know exactly, I admitted. And for the first time in my life, that uncertainty doesn't frighten me at all.